Elections Canada's Accessibility Plan 2024 Progress Report. Table of Contents. Table of Contents. Page 2. Message from the Chief Electoral Officer. Page 3. General. Page 4. Highlights. Page 5. Transportation. Page 5. Consultations. Page 6. Feedback. Page 6. Highlights from the 2024 Progress Report. Page 6. Employment. Page 6. The Built Environment. Page 6. Information and Communication Technologies. Page 7. Communication other than Information and Communication Technologies. Page 7. The Procurement of Goods, Services, and Facilities. Page 7. The Design and Delivery of Programs and Services. Page 7. Legislative Barriers. Page 9. Consultations with Deaf AgD members. Page 10. Message from the Chief Electoral Officer. I am pleased to share with you Elections Canada's annual Accessibility Progress Report for 2024, which describes the agency's work toward creating a barrier-free electoral process by 2040, as required by the Accessible Canada Act. Elections Canada has continued to make significant progress in identifying, removing, and preventing barriers to accessibility for electors and employees of Elections Canada. I am happy to report that as an agency, we have continued to reach important milestones as committed to in our accessibility plan. This is despite a challenging operational environment, which included the delivery of several by-elections in 2023 and 2024, while also preparing for the next federal general election in the context of a minority government. Of note, Elections Canada has made progress in developing an application that will allow voters who are blind or partially sighted to vote and verify their ballot independently. Within Elections Canada, we have implemented a number of initiatives aimed at improving the experience of employees with disabilities, and we have launched a recruitment strategy to address gaps in the representation of persons with disabilities and other designated groups. The Accessibility and Gender-Based Analysis Plus Office continues to play a key role in supporting the agency with its implementation of the Accessibility Plan and by meeting our reporting commitments. A revised accessibility plan was published in June 2024 based on a review done by the Office of the Accessibility Commissioner. Feedback from the Office of the Accessibility Commissioner was also integrated into our progress report where applicable. I would like to express my gratitude to members of the disability community, including members of the Advisory Group for Disability Issues, for their contributions to making the electoral process accessible to Canadians. I would also like to thank the employees of Elections Canada for their ongoing commitment to accessibility and for promoting the inclusion of persons with disabilities at all organizational levels. Stéphane Perrault, Chief Electoral Officer. General. To request a copy of Elections Canada's 2024 Accessibility Progress Report in print, large print, braille, audio format, or another accessible format, to receive information about our feedback process, or to send us feedback to improve our services, please contact the Manager, Accessibility and Gender-Based Analysis Plus Office at accessibility-accessibility@elections.ca. You can also send us suggestions, questions, and complaints, request help, and report incidents using our Contact Us form. Other ways to contact us are listed below. Telephone. Toll-free in Canada and the United States, 1-800-463-6868. Toll-free in Mexico, 001-800-514-6868. From anywhere in the world, 1-613-993-2975. For people who are deaf or hard of hearing, TTY, toll-free in Canada and the United States, 1-800-361-8935. Fax. Local. 1-613-954-8584. toll-free in Canada and the United States, 1-888-524-1444. Address: Elections Canada, 30 Victoria Street, Gatineau, Quebec, Canada, K1A 0M6. Highlights. This video is an ASL-LSQ summary of Election Canada's 2024 Accessibility Progress Report. The summary was suggested during consultations of the full report. Readers can access the full report at 2024 Accessibility Plan Progress Report, Elections Canada. Elections Canada's, or EC's, 2024 Progress Report covers the period from August 1, 2023 to March 31, 2024. It forms part of EC's commitment to both the public and its employees with disabilities to create a barrier-free organization by 2040. It is also a requirement under the Accessible Canada Act, or ACA, and Accessible Canada Regulations, or ACR. Persons with disabilities were involved at all stages of the preparation of this report, as required by the ACA. To this end, we conducted 3 consultations on a draft version of this report in September 2024. The consulted parties were the Advisory Group for Disability Issues, or AGDI, employees with disabilities, and the Accessibility Field Working Group, returning officers and field liaison officers. As of March 2024, a team of 4 made up EC's Accessibility and Gender-Based Analysis, or GBA Plus Office, a commitment under the Accessibility Plan. Since its establishment in 2023, this office has supported the implementation of the Accessibility Plan by playing a coordinating role on accessibility priorities, breaking down silos across teams, and identifying interdependencies across business lines. The office regularly shares information on accessibility to give staff the knowledge and tools they need to help them identify, remove, and prevent barriers to the full and equal participation of employees and members of the public with disabilities. The office also supports teams across EC in establishing their accessibility plan commitments and reporting annually on them in the progress reports. In December 2023, EC received an inspection from the Office of the Accessibility Commissioner of the agency's Accessibility Plan, which had been published in December 2022. In collaboration with various teams, the Accessibility and GBA Plus Office developed a corrective action plan to address the findings of the inspection. The 3-stage corrective action plan was submitted to the Office of the Accessibility Commissioner in January 2024. EC has completed 2 stages. The final stage is more complex and will require more in-depth internal analysis to effectively address systemic or unknown barriers. In June 2024, an updated accessibility plan was published that integrates the feedback provided by the Office of the Accessibility Commissioner. In its corrective action plan, EC committed to adapting the headings of the Accessibility Plan to better align with requirements under the ACA. EC also committed to expanding the transportation section of the plan to better understand the barriers related to the delivery and/or pickup of goods, staff travel, consultation travel, or any other area to be identified. As mentioned above, there are 3 areas in particular that EC will need to expand on in future progress reports to comply with the ACA: consultation, feedback, and the transportation pillar. Transportation. In the area of transportation, the Accessibility and GBA Plus Office is working with businesses across the agency to understand how transportation touches on various processes and what barriers currently exist related to transportation, as defined in the corrective action plan that was submitted to the Office of the Accessibility Commissioner. Consultations. Businesses that conducted consultations over the reporting period included them in their sections. We note, however, that there is work to be done to understand how feedback from consultations with employees and members of the public is being integrated into improving accessibility and removing barriers. As a result, the Accessibility and GBA Plus Office is working with business owners across the agency to address gaps in consultations. Feedback. The Office of the Accessibility Commissioner found that EC was not in full compliance with Section 70 of the ACA. This section requires EC to establish and publish a description of the process for receiving and integrating accessibility feedback. While the ways that members of the public can provide accessibility feedback to EC are clearly published on the EC website, more work is required to ensure that our internal feedback mechanisms are compliant with the report from the Office of the Accessibility Commissioner. As a result, the Accessibility and GBA Plus Office is working with internal stakeholders to implement a responsive and transparent accessibility feedback process for EC employees. The Complaints Management Framework team has also initiated a technical review of the systems for receiving feedback to monitor the feedback and resolution process. EC was also required to provide more detailed information regarding the process for members of the public and employees with disabilities to provide feedback. Since the inspection, we have clarified our feedback process in the Accessibility Plan, and work has begun to make improvements to how EC employees submit feedback, complaints, and accommodation requests. Highlights from the 2024 Progress Report. Employment. EC launched a new recruitment strategy to address gaps in representation, including those for people with disabilities. A middle manager development program was started in December 2023, with a focus on members of equity-seeking groups, including persons with disabilities. A third-party consultant is currently carrying out a full system review of EC's employment policies and practices. This review will identify possible systemic and attitudinal barriers to employment opportunities for designated group members. The built environment. At 30 Victoria, the Workplace Ambassador Program was implemented to provide on-site and real-time assistance to staff as they encounter challenges, technological, situational, logistical, etc. The program is one channel through which staff can convey feedback and complaints, such as those related to accessibility. During the spring of 2023 and again in the winter of 2024, a staff survey included accessibility-related questions. Both surveys included an option for staff to self-identify as having a disability or not. 8 to 9% of respondents identified as having a disability. A cross-tabulation analysis was completed to identify areas of particular concern for our employees who self-identify as having a disability. As a result, an action plan and recommendations were shared with relevant internal stakeholders to address areas of concern. Information and Communication Technologies. EC is continuing to build an inventory of all common tools, software, and equipment for employees to choose from. These tools will be aligned with the Government of Canada's, or GOC's, security standards requirements. We are working with Occupational Health and Safety, or OHS, to establish a process for making non-standard requests. Information Technologies, or IT, worked with OHS to develop a process for better responding to employee accommodation requests related to IT. This process will be integrated into a broader initiative aimed at streamlining the process for receiving and tracking feedback, complaints, and accommodation requests. Communication other than information and communication technologies. EC implemented several foundational pieces to enable the work on accessibility. As a result, employees in key communications positions in the Public Affairs and Civic Education branch received training on digital accessibility and inclusive design using Microsoft 365. An information session was also held with communication staff on developing accessible communications products and providing education on accessibility requirements, guidelines, and best practices. Furthermore, EC awarded a number of contracts in support of accessibility commitments. Specifically, a contract is now in place for conducting usability testing of the EC website. Contracts with American Sign Language, or ASL, Langue des Signes Québécoise, or LSQ, and Braille suppliers were renewed to expand our suite of communications products in alternative formats. We developed standardized and accessible page templates for the corporate intranet and made our internal newsletter more accessible. We developed an internal communications policy with guidelines for creating and publishing digital communications products in alternative formats on the EC website. The procurement of goods, services, and facilities. EC now requires business owners to assess accessibility when making new procurement requests. During the 2023-24 fiscal year, 10% of new procurement requests included accessible standards or flexibility in the design of their requirements. EC partnered with Shared Services Canada to facilitate the purchase of services from small businesses and micro-organizations owned by underrepresented groups, including people with disabilities. The design and delivery of programs and services. Voter registration. EC continues to make improvements to its public-facing registration interface based on user feedback. Registration products are also continuously revised to ensure that they are written in plain language. Voting tools and services. On March 28, 2024, EC issued a contract to CompuSult Limited. This company will be developing an assistive technology tool or application that will help visually impaired electors to independently confirm that they have marked their ballot correctly and marked it against the candidate of their choice. Services to political entities. EC conducted a survey of official agents who had participated in the 44th general election. Respondents were asked to identify what barriers to accessibility they had experienced. Most often, they noted that technological barriers had influenced their ability to fulfill their obligations. A program evaluation was also initiated to obtain information on the benefit of accessibility expenses that are permitted under the Canada Elections Act, CEA, but currently underused, as well as any barriers that political entities may encounter in making use of and reporting on these benefits. Civic education. EC reviewed the Welcome to Elections and Democracy area of the EC website for inclusive language. There were also questions on accessibility in the biannual survey of teachers to better meet the needs of students with a disability, and feedback will be included in future resource updates. Legislative barriers. The barriers and potential barriers resulting from the Canada Elections Act, or CEA, and identified by Elections Canada, or EC, in the Accessibility Plan still exist as of the date of this progress report. Barriers that result from the CEA itself can be removed only by Parliament and not by EC. Some legislative barriers have been highlighted in past recommendations reports of the Chief Electoral Officer, or CEO, to Parliament, as well as in specific recommendations made to Parliament. More specifically, the CEO's recommendations report that followed the 43rd and 44th general elections, which was tabled in the House of Commons on June 7, 2022, the 2022 recommendations report, includes recommendations that aim to improve the accessibility of the voting process by removing certain barriers to voting and increasing opportunities for all electors to exercise their right to vote. On March 20, 2024, the Government of Canada, or GOC, introduced Bill C-65, an act to amend the Canada Elections Act, Bill C-65, which, if enacted by Parliament, would amend provisions throughout the CEA. Bill C-65 includes the following amendments to the CEA that flow from the 2022 Recommendations Report. Amendments that would facilitate the special ballot voting process for electors by adding the ability to return their special ballot to polling stations. These changes would give electors the flexibility to vote at advance and ordinary polls, even if they have applied for a special ballot, and would also allow electors to indicate a party's name rather than a candidate's name on the special ballot. Amendments that would offer adapted voting services to electors who reside in long-term care institutions by adding flexibility for voting days and times in those institutions. These changes would also remove the requirement to prove residence for electors residing in long-term care institutions and voting in such institutions, and it would adapt the solemn declaration so that it does not need to include a statement that such electors reside at the address they claim in the declaration. Amendments that would make it easier for electors requiring assistance to vote at the polls by allowing any person, as opposed to only a friend or a relative, to accompany them in the voting compartment and assist them to mark their ballot. These amendments would also remove the requirement for the person making a solemn declaration to declare that they have not assisted as a friend more than one person to vote. Bill C-65 is not yet law, and it may be subject to change as it moves through the parliamentary process. As of March 31, 2024, Bill C-65 was at second reading in the House of Commons. Finally, as EC works toward achieving the accessibility commitments set out in its accessibility plan, it may form the basis of further recommendations for future legislative amendments. However, while the CEO can make recommendations, only Parliament can decide whether or how to act on these recommendations. Consultations with Deaf AGDI members. The Consultation Services Team supports Elections Canada's, or EC's, consultation needs, strategic initiatives, and the Chief Electoral Officer's, or CEO's, Strategic Plan 2020-28 by organizing and facilitating consultations with EC stakeholders. Our collaboration with internal and external stakeholders helps ensure that the agency's decision-making is more inclusive and transparent to those who are affected. The Consultation Services Team also acts as the Secretariat to AGDI, the First Nation and Métis Advisory Circle and Inuit Advisory Circle, and formerly the Advisory Committee for Political Parties. In the previous 10 months, the team delivered 6 consultations and held 8 committee meetings where we consulted on various accessibility-related topics. During the reporting period, EC held the following consultations with deaf Canadians: Researching American Sign Language and Langue des Signes Québécoise video services. Consultation owner. Alternative voting methods. How? In-person, virtual, Zoom. When? December 7th, 2023, AGDI meeting, March 20th to 21st, 2024, 2.5 hours. What? Objective. Help EC better understand how it can improve services at the polls and at local EC offices for electors using ASL or LSQ. Who? 4 ASL users, 3 LSQ users. Researching American Sign Language and Langue des Signes Québécoise service enhancements. The consultation on American Sign Language, ASL, and Langue des Signes Québécoise, LSQ, mentioned in Barrier 2, focused primarily on 3 areas of interest. First, we discussed EC's current suite of services for ASL-LSQ users with the various organizations. Second, discussions focused on the Service Canada pilot project for on-demand interpretation. Finally, the discussion concluded with a focus on artificial intelligence and avatar translation applications, which are or could be used for interpretation services. Consultation owner. Voting tools and services. How? In person. When? AGDI, in person, December 6th and 7th, 2023, Ottawa, Ontario. What? We shared plans on upcoming consultations with respect to ASL-LSQ on-demand interpretation services. Who? AGDI members. What we heard. At the conclusion of a short presentation, participants were asked, what ASL or LSQ technology do you or someone you know use every day to assist with communication? Members shared various resources and made suggestions for seeing completed projects, which included recommendations for avoiding duplicating efforts. One member reminded EC that there are people with vision and hearing limitations. Addressing their needs and providing things like Braille displays should be taken into considerations. Sessions. January 9th, 2024, Canadian Association of the Deaf, Zoom. 1 participant attended the consultation. January 31st, 2024, Wavefront Center for Communication Accessibility, Zoom. 2 participants attended the consultation. March 21st, 2024, American Sign Language User Group, Zoom. 4 participants attended the consultation. March 22nd, 2024, Langue des Signes Québécoise User Group, Zoom. 3 participants attended the consultation. All consulted organizations were asked the same questions. Current EC services. Have any of you ever requested an interpreter for EC or any other government department? What has been your overall experience with EC and voting? What barriers do you and your community face? Are there any other suggestions you can offer that might help EC make voting more accessible for the deaf community? Service Canada pilot. If EC were to pilot this type of ASL and LSQ service, would it be useful in casting your vote at the polls or in a local EC office? Artificial intelligence and translation apps. Can you share with us your thoughts on the usability of artificial intelligence or avatar ASL LSQ applications? For example, are HandTalk and Google Deaf Sign Translator tools that the community would find helpful if EC implemented them? Feedback from the consultations on American Sign Language and Langue des Signes Québécoise. Elections Canada's current suite of services for deaf electors. The participants noted that the overall voting process is simple for the deaf community in that the process of voting and going behind the voting screen is easy enough. There is a common understanding that can be reached between election officials and electors using simple hand gestures, pointing for directions, etc. Information on the election process in ASL and LSQ formats is available on the EC website between electoral events. There are videos on EC's YouTube channel. However, they are not linked or provided anywhere on the EC website. Additional considerations highlighted by the participants included: there is a lack of deaf representation in current election advertising. There is a desire to be fully involved in and informed of the electoral process, including the activities leading up to an event, such as debates. This was actually a very popular topic. Although it is outside EC's purview to deal with debates, there may be a way that we can share this information more broadly. Service Canada pilot project for on-demand interpretation. Given the shortage of ASL LSQ interpreters across the country, it would be extremely difficult to staff enough interpreter positions to make such a service available at polling locations and local EC offices. The participants also noted that interpretation services should be saved for those who require emergency services. Rural or remote areas could face connectivity issues and might not be able to access interpretation services using a tablet. Artificial intelligence and avatar translation applications. Several ASL artificial intelligence or avatar applications have been developed for the deaf community to make communication easier in everyday life. These applications offer text-to-sign, speech-to-sign, and speech-to-text services. While these applications use rapidly developing technology, they lack facial, grammar, and emotional interpretation, which are key in ASL and LSQ. There are issues with interpreting live conversations. If people are speaking too fast or not clearly enough, the applications have a hard time translating properly. Next steps. A preliminary draft analysis has been prepared. Pending other priorities, we are planning to complete the analysis, confirming the information captured during the various consultations, sharing our findings with internal partners, broadening our understanding of what was said and what we heard, assessing the feasibility of potential changes and prioritizing them.